Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Charlene Lee and Claire Koonce, the casting directors for the Netflix hit series Beef. It's a great show. I love it so much. I want to correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that Steven and Allie were attached already. They're executive producers. So I guess in your role as casting directors, I was wondering, like, are you thinking of them and their acting style and then trying to like build the supporting cast around what you know they do well, or kind of like ways to stretch them out? I guess just broadly speaking, I was wondering how you kind of thought of that when you was in a situation like this where you have the two leads already in place.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say I was
Either
gonna let you
one,
go,
Claire.
Char, but
You
I was
go
gonna say
first. Yeah.
I'm so ready for this. So we tend to start with what's on the page and what the showrunner is going for. So we really kind of take the creative package as a whole. And the fact that Stephen and Allie came in with such a breadth of like such a body of work, right? Like you have these ways that you know them, but knowing Sonny and knowing the tone that he wanted to go to with the show, and knowing the route that we were going to go plot wise, I think we kind of assumed that Stephen and Ellie were going to use this as an opportunity to stretch maybe some different muscles. And so that's kind of where we approached it from, was building up a chemistry that was based on Sonny's vision.
Okay. And then I guess from you mentioned like where the show is going and the tone, I feel like that's also tricky because the show has like a lot of, it's like it's hard to, it's like a lot of different genres, right? There are dark comedy elements, but it's also very serious drama and all these different things. And I guess like then are like, how do you find like the right kind of actor for that kind of tone? It is a very specific tone in the show. And like I said, I think this cast is an incredible ensemble and everybody kind of really hits that mark, but it feels like almost a tightrope walk that you have everyone succeeding. And I think that's a credit to the group you put together. But I guess like, how did you guys think about that?
I think we don't necessarily see such a huge delineation between comedy and drama. And I think there's, comedians who can play drama very well and vice versa. So I think very much, our approach was just finding the right actors for it, as opposed to being like, this is a comedic actor versus this is a dramatic actor. So it was very much just in terms of our process was just, finding the right people regardless of, which genre they were more predominantly well known in, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's good. So I want to like another thing again. I very much enjoyed is that I feels like there's a ability to make discoveries for me as a viewer. I was like, I never seen like Young Mazino before, or Joseph Lee, or maybe I had seen them but I didn't really register them. And these are two incredibly key parts in Paul, who's Young's character, Paul, right? And then Paul, and then Joseph plays Allie's husband. I guess can you like how did you kind of figure out that those actors for those parts, and like what were those processes like? Because I'm sure that was a very lengthy process, I would imagine. I don't know, but like, so I guess starting with Young, who I feel like everybody has like cited as like a real breakout on this show. Like, I mean, how did you kind of like find him, and what was that process like to get him on board?
First of all, can I just say that I love that you think about those two characters, because those were the two that we like jumped right, because you were talking about building a package around Stephen and Allie, and we were like, Stephen and his brother, that's gonna matter. Allie and her husband, that's gonna matter. So I'm glad that those resonated with you.
Yes, they did.
Char, you look
really
like you were gonna jump in. Now you don't.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of our approach, we very much, went the traditional route of, finding through agents and managers, but also really wanted to make sure we turned over every stone. So we did a ton of searching, not just for the series regulars, but also for, even the small day players, guest stars. I think it was so important for us to get each and every role just right. But it was an extensive search for both of those roles. And, very fortunately, even though we were casting during the height of COVID, we were able to do a lot of chemistry sessions on Zoom, but also in person. So it was, I think, being able to really go through that process really allowed us to find the right people for those roles.
Yeah, we searched everywhere. We put the word out everywhere. We knew that we wanted to get it right. And so Young coming out of the East Coast, even though we knew that the show was shooting in LA, it was important to us, like Char said, to turn over every stone.
with Yeun, and you mentioned like doing chemistry reads. I mean, is this something where you're like, is there a specific chemistry you're looking for between like Danny and Paul and like Steven and Yeun then in that case, or do you just kind of know it when you see it?
You know, it's interesting. You know, it is a very much a, you know, when you see it, but I think what particularly going off of what you're saying about Young's character, what I think was really interesting was obviously the chemistry between the sibling chemistry between that character and Danny Stevens' character was so important, but also the chemistry between his character and Allie's character, Amy, was also so important. And that was something, you know, early on we didn't know that plot line would come into play. And, you know, very much through the process. And as we got more scripts and realized what was going to happen with that character, we kind of had to factor that into the casting of Paul. And I think obviously he has amazing chemistry with Steven, but also with Allie. So, you know, I think romantic chemistry and non-romantic chemistry, like all of those things come into play as we make as we go along in the process.
Yeah. And to answer your question about whether like you know it when you see it, I think a lot of people feel like sometimes in an audition room, we're waiting for someone to come in and get it right. And that's not really the case, actually. So we had, you know, wonderful contenders for the role, and they had chemistry with Steven and Allie, but it was a different type of chemistry. And so on our side, it kind of becomes, what story do you want to tell? You know what I mean? Like if the chemistry moves in this direction or if the chemistry moves in that direction. And we got really excited about where it could go with Yeun.
Yeah, he's so good. And obviously, I mean, like I said, like I think people have really cited him as like a breakout. It's got to be very gratifying, and then for you guys to be like, yes, we nailed that. That was really good.
It is rewarding because it feels a little bit like you're saying, hey, everyone take a look at this person, and the fact that everyone responded to him the same way we did, it's just it is really validating. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then I mentioned Joseph, another actor who had not really seen playing George. That's a character again that I feel is like really tricky, and he plays him so well because he is kind of the fool, and he is doing like kind of funny stuff, but he never plays it in a way that you're kind of laughing at him. I feel like it is a very subtle thing that he's doing as a performer, and I just find it really incredible. And again, like a guy I'd not really seen in anything, and I was looking at his IMDb, I'm like, I've seen stuff that he's been in, but I never really registered him or whatever it was. And I'm just like, oh wow, he's so good. And I guess like again, like yeah, like how'd you like again? Was it a similar story where you're like kind of looking high and low to find somebody for that part?
We were looking high and low to find somebody for that part because it was a really hard character to nail, because I think on the like there could be an assumption that maybe George isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, or an assumption that he's doing any of his shall we say toxic positivity like deliberately. And I think there's an earnestness to George that Joseph really captured that it was I mean, Shar, I feel like
yeah,
that was a hard one.
Yeah. It was a tricky balance, but I think you also had to really believe in his relationship with Amy and them fighting for that, or else it doesn't really work, right? So if it was just someone that was like so easily dismissed, then I think then that lowers the stakes of the story. So I think, you know, Joseph like really nailed each like aspect of the character. That was really hard. There are certain people who were very good at one, like, you know, playing one aspect of the character, but not the other. But I think finding empathy with that character and kind of just nailing that balance was something that was really tricky, but he did so well.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He really is. It's a great performance. I just love him in it so much. And before, I wanted to ask you, at the risk of just ticking down the list, two of the casting or people, they're child actors, right, in the flashback scenes, and I loved those scenes are so, especially I feel like the Danny and Paul scenes are just heartbreaking. And I guess like, how did you go about like finding a young like Steven Yeun to play that part? I just found that child actor is so good and it feels so real.
You know, I'm gonna let Shar jump in on this.
Oh my goodness. No, I was gonna say it was so exciting because we CAPE, the Coalition of Asian Pacifics and Entertainment, they were so instrumental in helping us get the word out And and specifically Evan, who played young Danny, he had never acted before, and so he was just found through an open call that Kate put out, and went through a series of auditions and got the role. So and it's really heartening because he now is pursuing acting, and something his mom had said that was really lovely was that you know like seeing people that look like him on screen really like gave him the confidence to want to like pursue acting, and that's just like so lovely. And yeah.
Well, okay, this is where I have to credit my partner though, because we did search for the younger kids. We tried to start early on that episode because we needed to find not only the young versions of both Danny and Amy, but also young versions of their parents and like all those sorts of things. And I will admit that like this is way more of a thing for Charlene, where she's like, they need to look the same. They have to look the same. And so that meticulousness, I do have to credit to my partner for that episode in particular. We were searching quite a bit.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
It's funny because I don't know if it's like a neurotic casting thing, but I think in everything that I watch, I very much like if someone doesn't match up, it definitely takes me out of it. And so
I'm like, they could be siblings. Let's just maybe half siblings.
I have a problem. I have a problem lately. That's just is a total sidebar, but on what you're saying there, when it's a very famous person and then they cast someone to play a younger version of them, and we've seen them as a younger version. I'm not thinking. I'm thinking of something, but whatever. And I'm just like, I know what they looked like 40 years ago or whatever it was. That's not what they look like, and you can't fool me. But I get why they're doing it, but just like, sometimes it just takes me out of it. So
I hear you. I hear you.
But I think I was gonna say, but I think because of that, we very much had to kind of piece together, for that particular episode, actors who, who had like a resume, like someone like Kelvin Han Yee, who has worked a lot in the US versus the Hong Dao, who played the actress who played his Mrs.
Amy's
Lau.
mom.
Amy's mom, she was someone who's predominantly known in Vietnamese media, but this was her US debut. So kind of needing to piece different things together to find the right.
It really, no, I love that. Is so great, and those flashbacks absolutely are really incredible on both sides for both the characters and the show. When you're, I mean, you meant like just broadly, I guess, when you're auditioning kids, like how does that differ for you, or like then when you're, I mean, what is that process like, and like how do you kind of go about it, because you're obviously trying to do your job and hiring somebody, but you're also dealing with children. So I guess like how does that work? I guess, and just broadly speaking.
Yeah, it's something that Shar and I, we've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of kids. We tend to actually like doing auditioning kids. It is a little bit, you end up seeing more kids because for us in particular with kids, it's when you're still kind of forming as a human, the idea of performing is a little less nuanced. And we're really always trying to find kids that feel like kids and feel like the age that they are. And I will say that requires a level of acting skill sets that sometimes your brain might need to develop a little bit more in order to have that sense of self and sense of how to perform versus how to like be yourself in a situation. But really the thing that I think is a lot of fun with kids is that a lot of the auditions are a lot more play focused. Because you're trying to kind of like get them out of the nervousness of an audition. You're trying to just kind of like be with them and play with them. If it's a scary situation or a sad situation, it's a little bit more play based. And that I find really rewarding with kids, just because I always want to make acting and creating a positive experience for them as they're growing up. I don't really want them to become, pageant mom children or something like that. I would like for them to stay healthy. But so finding kids it's a longer process. It's a more voluminous process because you really have to kind of find the kids that are not only right for the role, but ready,
right?
For all of the other stuff that comes with it. And we always want to make sure that we're keeping them healthy.
Yeah, no, that's
And
good.
so like Remy's parents, for example, we enjoyed getting to know along the way, and they're lovely parents and lovely people.
That's good. A couple of other, just again to tick down the list, because it's again a very good ensemble. Maria Bello plays someone I would say is a little goopy or goop adjacent, let's say, right, in her portrayal. And I guess, like, you know, again, that felt like, I'm sure you could have gone a lot of different ways with that character. And I guess specifically, like, yeah, what was it about Maria that stood out? And I love her, the way she kind of works off of Allie, I find great, because no one else on the show is kind of really giving that to Allie's character, I guess. I don't know. And I just found their interplay really great. So I guess, like, yeah, how'd you go about like figuring out that role?
Well,
So
one thing that I loved about Jordan's character is we had always had her described as someone who grew up Walmart and is now selling goop. So the idea that she kind of has like a bit of like that blue collar grit, that now has all of the money in the world. And I mean, Maria is like so powerful, right? And then you put her in chunky glasses and and a silk scarf, and I'm like, I believe that you could wave your hands and billions would follow. So that's one thing. Go ahead, Char.
To kind of like go off of what Claire was saying, I think, you know, like tonally, we knew that she could balance all those things. Yeah, you know, and I think this is something that we haven't seen her do. And so it was really exciting to have her for this one. So
Nice. And then how about, and then again, last one, it was wondering, it was like Ashley Park, who I also love. And it's a definitely a supporting role. I would say there's no such thing as small roles, but it's obviously not like a lead role, right? But I mean, like, so again, it feels like you probably could have gone a lot of different ways with that character as well. And like Ashley, I just love in a lot of different things. She's such a great personality and comes across really well on screen. But I guess, like, for you guys, what was it about her that kind of stood out for that character?
you know, she also wound up auditioning, and we auditioned so many actresses.
We
for
had
that.
such a wealth of talent for that role. Oh,
Yeah.
it was lovely.
And it was such a range of ages and you know, different types of actresses. But I think, you know, at the core of it, I think kind of what we said about Joseph as well is, like, I think she can easily be seen as like a villain, but you also have to empathize with her and kind of understand her motivations. And I think that's something that Ashley really did so well in her auditions, as to just making Naomi like a twirling mustache, you know, person who's like plotting against Amy. You have to kind of also understand her motivations a little bit. And I think, yeah, she just brought such an interesting layer to that character. And so in the process of auditioning, she really stood out. And yeah.
Yeah, no, she's great. I guess, like you meant, like, it sounds, just for speaking with both of you, it sounds like this was like a lot of fun, probably, and like the cast is really great. I guess, what was, like, you know, what was something that's like that you stood out about this project, or that was like different from other stuff you've done, that you were like very excited about and like happy to see pay off, I guess?
Go ahead.
Okay, or do you want to go, or do you want
No,
me to
go ahead.
You know, I think, you know, when we first heard about the project, I think we were so intrigued by the premise of a road rage, and obviously the elements of everyone who was involved. Obviously we were huge fans of Steven and Allie, but coupled with it being A24 and Netflix,
And Sonny.
and yes, and Sonny Lee, the showrunner, I was such a huge fan of his work on Dave, and so there were just so many. It was such a convergence of so many like amazing elements, and so when it came along, we were just really excited to tackle something that was so different than something we'd seen before.
Well, the other thing, and Charlene and I were just talking about this the other day, that Charlene, you were talking about the opportunity that we got to because these roles aren't on screen, and they're a thrill to cast. They're so much fun to cast. It's wonderful to explore these new pools of talent. But Char, I don't want to step on your words, because you were saying it beautifully the other day.
Oh no, I was just saying, like the opportunity to find new actors and new faces and kind of search is something that's pretty rare, and truly is a testament to like everyone who was part of the project that was so collaborative and open to finding the right person for each role, um however long that process would take. And so um yeah, for allowing us to go through the process of really searching and turning over every stone. It's something that's rare, and a lot of it
Well,
um
and writing the characters so that they
exactly.
exist for us to do it.
And to be able to help bring to life characters that are so rich and interesting, flawed, and at the same time we're able to empathize with them. It's interesting because a lot of people have said to me, in terms of like, I've very much been Amy's character and Danny's character before, and could see you know parts of, like, people have said like they've been able to, like, different aspects of each character has resonated with them. And I think that's just a testament to obviously the
The whole
writing
show
and
as it came together.
the
Yeah.
whole show. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, and I've talked about it with my own friends and people. I think people have really responded to the show. We do have to wrap up. I feel like I could speak to both of you for so much longer because I really did love this, and it's great. But Charlene Lee and Claire Koonce, the casting directors for the Netflix series Beef, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
For